Hey, beautiful people, and welcome back to another powerful episode of Conversations with Kisei, where real talk meets healing, growth, and transformation. I'm your host, Kisei, and today we're diving deep into the topic that's near and dear to my heart, therapy. We're breaking the stigma, shedding the shame, and getting real about what it means to prioritize our mental and emotional well being. And I couldn't think of a better guest to help guide us through this important conversation than my therapist, the incredible Dr. Joan E. Brown. She's a licensed therapist, author, and mental health advocate with decades of experience helping individuals and families heal from the inside out. Whether you're therapy curious or already on your journey or still questioning if it's for you, this episode is for you. So grab your tea, get cozy, and let's unpack why therapy truly matters. All right, I'd like to welcome my therapist, Dr. Joan. How are you today? I'm so happy you're here with me. So excited.
Can you say thanks for inviting me?
I do so much talking about therapy. It's about you. So this is like y'all could finally put a face to the name. Because I'm always like, my therapist, my therapist, my therapist. So this is who my therapist is, guys. So you can see who she is. And tonight we're going to really talk about some therapy and how we can live a better life. If you have a healthy mental aspect, your life is just so much better. Trust me. I know she got me here. All right. So I have a few questions for you. I do have Instagram and I have TikTok here. So you guys, please let us know if you have any questions and I can ask Dr. Joan if we have more time. So first question, can you tell us about your journey into therapy? What led you to combine temperament therapy, psychotherapy, nutrition, integrative medicine, and biblical truths? Thank you so much, Dr. Joan, for joining us today. I'm so grateful that you are here. I'm so grateful that my people can finally see you because I'm always talking about you. Can you let the people know a little bit about you before we get into our questions?
Sure. I come from actually a science background.
Really?
I have a degree in, well, bachelor's in biology, master's in
So you can go be a
chemical.
medical doctor
Well,
if you wanted to.
master's in industrial chemistry and also a master's in information systems management. I just like pull from all my backgrounds. My PhD is in clinical pastoral counseling. And then, of course, my licensed master's is in professional counseling. So I kind of put my background together, and that's just a journey through the years.
That is really, so no wonder you was able to get me together. I love that. Wow. So you are well equipped to help us help us take our next step to having a healthy mental. Wow. I love it. I love that. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey into therapy? What led you to combine temperament therapy, psychotherapy, nutrition, integrative medicine, and biblical truths?
Yeah. So from my background, I just saw the need to be, and I've always been natural, even with my family and the approach to anything, go the natural route. Not necessarily take medicine unless it's necessary. Make sure the diet is good,
Yes.
feeding my family more naturally, no junk foods. My family would tell you there was never any soda in our house.
Okay.
So yes, and so it's the approach that I have when I went into therapy that I came out of doing research, chemical research, and
Research.
drug development. I
Oh,
did,
wow.
for pharmaceuticals for, over 20 years. So I knew what it's like, what the testing is like and all that. But I knew
Yeah,
that
you are
going
super
into
smart.
therapy, I wanted to be more of a natural approach. So I'm very holistic. So it's looking at what we call the biopsychosocial and spiritual, because all that makes us up as human beings. You can leave a portion of it out, but there's always something missing that people have going on in their lives, and they usually don't know what it is.
Yes, we haven't even really got started. That was a whole sermon right there. People don't even usually know what it is. That's so true. I tell people all the time, I don't need therapy. I'm like, you really don't even know what you need, go talk, have 3 therapy sessions with somebody, and then come back and tell me that same thing. So, what inspired you to create a non-judgmental space, safe space for individuals, couples, and families?
Well, the safe space, of course, is how we're trained in therapy to help create a safe space. But what it really leads to is in that safe space, healing that needs to come from the individual, right? So that healing, you have to recognize what needs to be healed. And that's the guidance that a therapist gives you, because you definitely can't change anyone else. You can't change what they think, feel, or do. So recognizing that the healing has to start with you is very important.
I always tell people, I'm like, it's you. You have to go figure out what you can do about you. You're the only person that you need to be concerned with, because you can't put hands on anybody else. Like, you have control of you.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Hey there, TikTok and Instagram, checking in with you guys. Hey there. Let me know if you have any questions for Dr. Joan. We're talking about therapy tonight. So how do you balance and integrate spiritual beliefs with clinical practices?
And actually, it's the client who guides that. It's where you are. Where they are is what we try to discover, and what needs to shift, what needs to change. And so once they recognize or decipher what that is lacking or what needs to be built up, that's usually the starting place for therapy.
I feel like, I know as when I started, I was going every week, and then I got down to twice a month, and now actually just once a month. But I think I want to change that back, because we never explored the biblical side of it, of the mental health, and just taking the principles of the Bible and putting them to everyday life, And
One of the things that what I noticed through counseling, individual has to be ready. If
Yeah, this is very
the
true.
thinking is off, no matter what you talk about, it's, and when I say off, I'm talking more a negative, type of mindset. No matter what you talk about, they may not budge from that. So the recognition of the kind of thinking patterns I have is important.
Yeah, yeah. I imagine that's just like, everybody has a different learning style. Everybody has a different therapy style. You can definitely, because we're all different head cases now. I know I was, woo. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, can you break down what temperament therapy is, and how does it differ from complements traditional psychotherapy?
Actually, when I learned about temperament therapy, it was more or less the foundation of who you are. So temperament, we believe to be inborn. It's like in your DNA.
Okay.
So an example of that is, and traits in the temperament, if, for example, you like people to be reliable, dependable, keep their word, all your life, you're going to want that. That's not going to change for you.
Right.
So there's some things that are inborn that doesn't show.
Wow.
But the approach is, how do I approach what I need? And it speaks to need.
Mm-mm.
Do I approach it in my strength or my weakness? And a lot of times when people come to my office, they're approaching things in their weakness.
Yeah, we love to downplay ourselves. We definitely don't give ourselves enough credit, We definitely don't. Wow. Wow.
So temperament actually sits at the core. Above that is your character, and above that is your personality.
Now,
So
those are all born. You're all born with that specific personality.
well, not really. Your temperament is what you're born with.
Okay.
That the needs that you have. The needs.
Okay.
Some people need to be loved. The need that we have that drives us to do the things that we do.
Okay. Okay.
Through our weaknesses or our strength. Character is environment affected. Your character is developed in the environment that you grow up in.
That makes sense.
So if you're not taught in your environment growing up to be honest, to have integrity.
How are you going to know how to do it? Wow.
Yeah. And personality is more self-selected. It's like a mask you wear. Yes. Because when I behave one way at work, when I come home, I don't be, if I'm in corporate America, I don't come home and act like I'm in corporate America. So that's the personality.
Wow.
You ever hear people say, someone I know that they got in trouble, they got arrested, this happened or that happened, and like you hear people say, that's not who I know them to be.
Yes, I hear. Yes, yes.
That can't be them. No, they got the wrong person.
I've said it about
You
myself.
met their personality.
Yeah, yeah. That makes perfect sense. This is like a therapy session for me, right? Wow. Okay. So let's talk about what role nutrition plays and integrative medicine play in emotional and mental healing.
Actually, it has a lot because you know how we talk about mood food.
Yes,
Food.
yes.
Food that you eat that gives you that good feeling. Eat that pie, that cake,
That
whatever
chocolate
that
covered
some people
strawberries.
something that chocolate. Yeah. So food is linked to moods, and so if you're not eating the right foods, yeah, it affects your mood, and sometimes it's very much short term. Some foods gives us energy,
Mm-hmm.
some then we drop, like say caffeine.
Mm-hmm.
It will build us up and then
Crash.
we have that crash. So eating the right foods affect the way we feel, how we interact with people. One thing I say like to my couples, you don't want to talk about tough things if you're hungry.
Really? Okay, that makes sense because
So
people get hangry.
exactly.
Okay.
So there's actually three states that you don't want to talk to someone, when it's a tough subject, which is, and I tell them to remember the word hat. When you're hungry, angry, or tired,
Oh, not a good time to do it.
that's the worst time. Eat a
Yeah.
good meal, sit down, and talk right after the meal
Mm-hmm.
about whatever it is that you guys need to really talk about.
Yeah. That makes sense because you definitely. I know I get hangry. I know I get hangry. And also, how about like as far as a diet? I imagine eating more greens as opposed to more McDonald's has better functions or functions as far as your brain activity too, right? That
Yeah.
helps.
And yeah, it does help, but the key that I always try to establish is knowing exactly where your nutritional levels are. So, yes, you should be getting, the vitamins and nutrition out of your meals, out of your food, and you've got to eat the right food.
Right.
But sometimes we have to assess whether some of the things we eat, we're not allergic or we're not sensitive to it.
Yeah, that eating thing can just be
Yeah,
emotional. You really can. Okay.
absolutely.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about marriage and relationship counseling. So, as a SYMBIS and Prepare Enrich certified facilitator, first of all, let's tell the folks what does that mean because I'm curious too. Does it?
Both,
I could pretty
yeah.
much figure out. Just adds to your resume. My God, it's so good.
Both SYMBIS and Prepare and Enrich are assessments. And so these assessments are, they're tools that helps either SYMBIS more focused towards premarital. So getting an idea before we get married, exactly what our expectations are, our communication
Right.
style, and they probably see the communication style, and everyone can improve their communication style,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
conflict resolution and just the whole aspect of how our family of origin interacts, someone getting married to someone from a large family versus someone just like an only child. There could be a lot of problems around that, that they have not overcome,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So these assessments just helps, clients to get a view of and an overall picture of what they're bringing to the table. And so it looks like at roles, and it looks at like expectations and things like that also. So I may grow up and my dad was the one that always fixed the car. And I'm thinking that you're supposed to do that too. You're supposed to take care of my car.
Yes.
And maybe that person hasn't got a clue.
They supposed to do
Besides changing the oil or something, and what I
it. Even if he
noticed
couldn't
too,
fix it, he could take it to get it fixed. But yeah, I ain't never think of that.
yeah.
Wow.
So we don't, some things is not talked about. But so the expectations sometimes, start to get lowered because I'm like, you're not doing the things that I thought that a husband should do
He
or a wife should
misconceived that
do.
I was
My
going to do.
mother always cooked. You don't cook, you know? Yeah.
So that's like a big, like, so, wow, that is just so, you definitely, I mean, just listen to that. Absolutely, you need to get therapy before you get married. So, what are the biggest misconceptions, though, couples have about premarital or marital counseling?
Well, some of the misconceptions, really, a lot of them are based on, once I get married, we are married, things will be different. There's so many different expectations that do happen.
Gosh, that's,
And, that's, one of the big ones. Once either we're living together or once we, start living together, things will change, and not looking at the fact that whatever it is, the red flags that you see, red flags sometimes grow, right?
yeah,
So, yeah. And so when I ignore it because I think, and just because you tell me you're working on it, and I'm not seeing what you're actually working on, it creates a problem.
wow.
So a lot of the misconceptions can lead to, disillusion.
So, what would you tell a couple? What would be the signs to indicate that it might be time for them to seek counseling? I mean, the obvious is arguing, but
Yeah, arguing. Spending, when we spend a lot of time in that realm of arguing, or we are not, somebody withdraws, from the relationship and just allows things to take place, just for the sake of peace. Sometimes this is what people will do.
yeah. That's, wow. So, do you have a success story about a couple that found new hope and direction through counseling?
Well, I've seen, I guess, several hundred couples, over the years. And I think one of the ones I found very interesting is one of infidelity. When there was infidelity, what was successful about this couple is because they came back and said that they were helping other couples.
Spread the love.
Go through it.
Yes. Pay it forward.
Yeah, and which was just wonderful that they were able to learn to communicate better, because generally what I see, that's where it starts. The communication, there's a communication breakdown, and when they understand what happened, with the communication breakdown, learning about their communication styles, going through their marital history, what has happened in the past that they can't seem to, forgive. Learning how to forgive, rebuilding trust, reconnecting with each other, and seeing what they brought in from their family of origin.
What kind of baggage you have to unpack, basically.
Yeah, but baggage and things like, some people don't know how to have a discussion or to even what we call fight fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because they didn't see it growing up. Their parents may never fought fair. So
Yeah.
there might have been yelling. So this is how I know that we interact with each other, try to get the point across and talk over each other, dismiss each other, and doing all of that. It's just coming from a place where this is what I know. This is the
I feel like I'm
template I
in
grew
church
up
right
in.
now. Wow. I feel like I'm in church right now and the pastor is like talking to me. I really do. So couples, absolutely. Not even just marriage. If you're gonna be a couple, if you want to grow, I definitely listen to just listening to that. I never took that into perspective. This is, you guys definitely, if you're a couple, you should absolutely do therapy. And if you feel like you're in a great space, just know going to therapy will make the space that much better. Wow. Whew. All right. So now let's talk about breaking the stigma around therapy, because people are like, I know I come from a background where it's like, don't talk about it. Well, go on in this house, stays in this house, and that's just basically like a bag just piling up. So how important is therapy in today's society where anxiety, depression, and trauma are so widespread?
Yeah. It has become so important in order to deal with, some of the things that people are bringing, that's rising to the surface. But what I've noticed in today's society, not like maybe even 10 years ago, 10, 15, 20 years ago, people are more open to it.
Yes, that's true.
I tend to have a lot of first timers to therapy.
I love
So
that.
now when you tell your loved one you ought to go to therapy, and your friends, people are listening and people are, going, they're listening to, what their people are saying about, their close friends and family are saying about their behavior or, their attitude, and, taking it to heart. When I start losing connections with people, I have to realize it's me.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So
Yeah.
how normal is it for everyone to be, disconnecting from you? What does that tell you when people start disconnecting? Well, you're looking at the common denominator, right? So does everyone else have a problem, or do I contribute in some way?
I know she is hitting some bells for y'all, 'cause I know, woo, I'm feeling some kind of way over here, in a great way though. A lot of I
Yeah. Yeah. So therapy is very much accessible
It
right now.
is.
You know,
It is.
the insurance has opened up. There's all types of therapy avenues now, whether it's, I guess, since after the pandemic,
Yeah.
virtual
Well,
therapy.
COVID definitely
There's,
showed us how to do a lot of different things.
yeah,
And that's
it's
what.
really opened up for everyone. So the stigma has loosened up,
Yes.
and people are actually embracing
I think after
going to
COVID, people
therapy.
needed it more too. Like that was tough for a lot of people mentally to be stuck in the
Yeah.
house for that. I didn't come out the house for 60 days, so
Yeah, because it felt like prison. And now
I was so scared.
we had a taste of what it's like for people to be in
Yep.
solitary confinement.
Yep. Yep. And if your headspace is not right, I know for sure I wasn't in a good headspace. I'm going back to it. Like I know for sure. Thank God. Thank God. Wow. I had a friend yesterday when I was talking about therapy. She was like, "Oh, the one I want to go to is in counseling. I mean, it's online. All of them want to do online." I said, "Well, what's wrong with online?" She was, "I want to be there." I said, "Why?" And I told her about how I was coming to you, and I said, that traffic, no, no." I said, "Go ahead. It's so much better. It's so much better when you're online. It's so much better. Hopefully, people, it's people think the traditional method of going in and laying on a couch. So, we're way ahead of time now. So online, like I said, COVID really taught us how to maneuver in different ways. Virtual is everything now. So, what's your initial reaction when you hear people say, when someone says therapy is not for me?
Well, actually, I don't hear that much, anymore. But, if I and when I do hear it, basically I'm asking, so what are you doing about to address your issue or your problem? And my next question is usually, and so how is that working for you? Because, yeah, if the issues and problems are, not addressed, what some people do is sweep it under the rug.
That bag is just going to get bigger. More
That, and
bags,
they
more
trip
bags.
and fall over it.
So, how do you respond to people who believe prayer or faith alone should be enough to handle emotional or mental struggles? That's a good one. That's complex.
That's a very complex. That alone is
Yeah,
a
for
session
real.
in itself. And
That really is. That really.
I usually assess, well, what are you doing there, and what is your community like that helps, to bring the support that you need, you know, as far as your faith community and prayer. So what is that like?
Yeah.
Sometimes we talk about what is your actual prayer like, because
That's a
if
real
you
good one.
understand anything about prayer, some people will just ask and ask and ask. So it becomes quite like sort of selfish in a way. That is, it's all about me. Prayer is more all encompassing, where I have to show gratitude also.
Yes.
Yeah, and I have to include others.
Yeah, it's good to include others. It's good to include others, just so you know, I'm not the only one with the problem.
And a lot of times that gratitude piece is what's missing for some people, because they only see the negative And so the as far as their mental health, it is a struggle because they're stuck in that cycle of negative thinking.
Right. I know I seen a man a few weeks ago at the doctor's office, and when I tell you the minute he started, it was just negative. I said, let me stop you, sir. If the next thing that comes out your mouth is not positive, please don't say it to me. I said, find 5 things to be thankful about. Anything. And I promise you, all that will definitely get lower. Like, it was terrible. But gratitude is so real.
And so, you ask them that they're struggling mentally and they're praying. I always want to know, what does your prayer sound like?
Yeah.
What are you saying, or what are you asking for? What is it like?
And not only that, but like, what are you doing? Because, like, I'm praying for a job, but like, are you doing your duty on here? Because faith without works is dead.
Is that
So you just can't be praying and praying and praying for something to happen, and you are not doing your due diligence to work with that prayer.
Yeah, that's like someone praying to do well on a test but never studies.
Right.
What's going to happen there?
So that's right.
Yeah, knowledge not going to drop from the sky in your brain.
You'd be surprised. People, I'm like, are you serious right now? Like, you have to work towards that. It's just not going to flop down in front of you and happen. But some people think that they can just pray for it. They won't do anything. They'll sit there and wait. I've seen it. And you're like,
yeah. But, and it also depends on the level of faith that you have.
mm-hmm.
Some people don't have much faith until something goes wrong. Something is bad. And they say they have faith at the moment.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, you can't have circumstantial faith. You have to be faithful all the time, even when things don't look great. You just got to know that, it's going to work in your favor. You put it you put it out in the universe, it has to come back. It has to come back, for real. Love that. So, let's check in with... All right. I need some more likes over here, TikTok. What's going on, guys? Need some more likes. All right, so let's get into personal philosophy and guidance. You say you can help people move from where they are to where they want to be. What does that process look like? What does it usually look like?
So, just that moving from where you are, that's where therapists will come in and help with guiding. It's like bikes on a training wheel. A training wheel on a bike's really. So there's a bikes with with set of training wheels. I don't know if people have that anymore, but back in the day, you would bend the wheels so that the individual, they might be a little lopsided, but they're learning how to balance. Therapist as a guide would help you to begin to see where the imbalance is, in your thinking, in your life, and help to guide you as you go on, and then pulling back a little till you're on your feet on your own thinking, your own approach, that you're questioning in terms of being able to move forward in your life and you're not stuck. So as a guide, that's what the journey is with a therapist, and just being able to, help you refocus, help you challenge.
I'm so grateful for everything. When I read that question, I said, I just feel like you said it for me. Like, I feel like I can answer that question, but I'm like, I couldn't put it in words, and you just did it. And like, I really feel like that. I really, really feel like that.
So, to help someone move out of their comfort zone. Comfort zone may be dysfunctional, but because I'm so used to it,
it might be right to me.
I'm there. So helping you move to where you want to be, it's not going to be comfortable to change. Because we know we want to be elsewhere,
right?
In our life or where we are with our emotions and stuff. We want to be elsewhere. We don't want to be stuck. It feels so, for some people, scary for something new. Yeah. But it's like when you go through the process, you're through it. The words are saying you're going through it.
Right. Trouble don't last always.
Yeah,
trouble don't last always, for sure.
Yeah.
This too shall pass. Wow. So the next question was, how do you define healing? But I feel like, and how do you define healing, and how do you recognize when healing has begun? But I kind of feel like you really pretty much covered that,
Yeah. Well, you start to feel different. When your awareness heightens, when you now become aware of what you do, that's like a trigger to my awakening, that just realizing that I am healing. I am starting to think a little different.
Wow. I promise you, I feel like this is a whole different therapy session for me. Like, this is such good information. I'm gonna have to go edit this quick and put it out here because so people need to really see this. So, for someone who is listening right now who's struggling but unsure about taking the first step toward therapy, what would you say?
I would encourage them to try it. And I think something you said earlier about, at least 3 sessions.
Yeah.
Do 3 sessions. But also, what's important is to make sure that that counselor is a good fit.
Yeah. Well,
And for a lot of newbies to therapy, they don't realize that there's different approaches that therapists have.
I tell people
Yeah.
I tell people your therapist is like an outfit. Sometimes you have to take it home, try it on, or take it back to the store and get a new one. But don't give up on it.
Absolutely.
And
Because,
also, they would need to know what do they like. Okay, because you got cognitive behavior. Like where? So yeah. So where do they start? Like, because I started with cognitive behavior, but like where? What's the first? What's the first? If somebody had to look up therapists, like what was the first therapy? What kind of therapist would they?
so if they knew that they were going through trauma, you would look at a trauma therapist. If it was going through grief and loss, you want someone who has, worked with clients that have grief and loss. So there's different modalities that therapists use that they're comfortable with using and they may have used for years. And you just want to know that whatever the issue is, whatever the problem, you sort of have to go into goals. What is it that I want to accomplish with therapy? What
Yeah.
is it that I want to change? And if you have an idea, if you're experiencing, like, say, anxiety and depression, you want to know that that person, has worked with individuals with that. And just know that 2 or 3 sessions are not going to
No, it's not.
eradicate,
Nope.
help you manage
I just feel like that's
years,
just gonna let you know what steps you
years of
can
a
take.
problem.
Nope.
That's like a quick fix. It's like
You gotta dig deep with
losing
that.
weight, a crash diet, and then you turn around and you gain it all back.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that. That's so real. I was going every Tuesday for a while. For a while.
And so, yeah, you have to peel the onion,
Yeah, you
the
gotta
layers of the onion.
unpack all those bags
Yeah.
and learn how to deal with the situations at hand. That some people. So, what's a telltale sign that? Because people be like, "I'm not depressed," and I'll be like, "I just had a conversation with you. You're absolutely depressed." What can somebody like look at themselves and be like, "Maybe I am depressed."
Well, I always approach it that depression and even anxiety, which I think are cousins, right? One
Yes.
shows up. It's a normal thing. Somebody loses their job. You're not happy about that.
No.
There's a little depression going on. There's a little sadness, right? Someone in your family passes away that everybody loved. The whole entire family is depressed.
Yeah.
I think what we as clinicians are concerned mainly about is how long you sit in it.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
So
so
even
necessary too.
yeah, and even with grief, grief and loss, there is depression, and you cycle through that. But the cycle of what we call the cycle of grief, you cycle through that, and you come back, and something triggers, and you may be back into a little depression again. But it's how long you sit in it which causes the issue or the problem for individuals. Some people are stuck in grief, for years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know when I went to grief therapy, when you had me go, one of the questions was, "What level of grief are you at?" I'm like, I don't know because I just take them on the chin and keep it moving. But it's like I didn't even know where I was. I didn't even know where I was. It's so important. It's grief, and not only that, when I was in grief counseling, you really hear is like how you were saying earlier about you need to hear other people. Like that grief therapy was really good for me because I heard some other stories that were like, "Dang," and it makes you just put things in a different perspective.
Yeah.
Different
But
perspective.
one of the things I always say is, the deeper the love, the deeper the grief.
Yeah.
So, I may need to process through that.
Yeah, yeah. I tell people that. I'm like, listen, like somebody just lost their father. I'm like, you should go have therapy because you've never lost your father before, and you've always had him. So now you need to learn how to unpack this bag with intention instead of having a drink and then two drinks and then a bottle. And then this gets deeper and deeper when you could
Yeah.
just really learn how to unpack that with intention, you know?
And, I speak to how do you honor that person?
Mmm.
So if I'm drinking and I'm trying to cover things up, is that what they would have wanted for you?
Yes. Yes.
Especially if you love them dearly and they loved you.
Wow. Woo. That was deep. That was deep. I mean, what a conversation. What a conversation of major love and gratitude to you, Dr. Joan. Your wisdom, your heart, your commitment, your knowledge helping us heal is real in time. Guys, I hope this episode reminded you that it's okay to not have it all together and that reaching out for help is not a weakness, it's a strength. Okay? And if today's episode spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend. Tell me in the comments if you are in therapy, if you're going to therapy, or how much therapy has helped you. Let me hear a review from you. And let us know how Conversations with Kisei is helping you grow. I love to hear that. You grow, I grow. So until the next time, remember, healing is possible. You are worthy of peace, and therapy truly does matter. Take care of yourselves and each other. Yeah.